State of Midlands Circuit Court in Breckinridge County, case on trial, Davis v. Happy Land Toy Company. Court is again in session. Prior to the recess, the plaintiffs rested their case. Ms. Lackett, does the defense wish to call any witnesses?
The defense calls Quinn Brown.
Quinn Brown, please take the witness stand. Ms. Brown, I remind you that you've been sworn to tell the truth. I direct you to do so. Please keep your voice up good and loud so that everybody can hear you. You may be seated. And Ms. Lackett, you may inquire.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Quinn Brown.
Where are you from?
I'm originally from Karnataka, India, but now I live in the Midland city. My parents sent me all the way from India to be an engineer. They know I'm an engineer. They don't know that I'm an engineer of toys.
What do you mean, engineer of toys?
I'm a toy designer.
Why did you become a toy designer?
Well, growing up in rural India, we had to make our own toys. My toys were the most popular. Everyone wanted one, so I thought, why not get paid?
And where do you work as a toy designer?
I have been working at the Happy Land Toy Company as a project leader for the past 8 years.
Ms. Brown, have you heard of a toy called Princess Beads?
Yes, I designed the craft kit. It was my idea, a make-your-own jewelry set designed for children 9 and up.
How do the beads work?
Oh, it is very easy. One first arranges the beads in a style of her choice and then sprays the beads with water, which activates a sticky substance on the beads. The beads then stick together to make jewelry, everything from rings to anklets to bangles.
Ms. Brown, were you involved in the manufacturing process of Princess Beads?
Yes, I was the project leader in charge of the production of Princess Beads.
And what was that process?
After we designed the craft kit, we created a prototype which we later tested for safety. The product was then produced for sale.
I want to talk about your safety protocols. Did you have any concerns about the safety of the product?
Because the beads were small and colorful, we worried about children putting the beads in their mouths and choking on them.
What safety precautions did you take to deal with those concerns?
We first covered the beads with a non-toxic, bitter-tasting substance called denatonium. Secondly, we ran tests to determine the effectiveness of the coating. And thirdly, we placed many warning labels on the box.
Well, let's talk about the bitter taste you used on the beads. Why did you use denatonium?
Well, we used it so that children would spit the beads out if they ever tried to eat them.
How did you determine that the denatonium worked?
We ran 25 tests using various bittering agents, including denatonium. Each test involved 10 2-year-olds. Of all the bittering agents, denatonium proved by far the most effective. Almost every single child in the denatonium test either spit the beads out if they tried to eat them or ignored them altogether.
You also mentioned the use of warning labels. I have a Princess Beads box right here. If I were to show you this box, could you identify these warning labels?
Certainly.
Your Honor, may I approach Ms. Brown with what has been previously marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 25?
Defense A being shown to the witness.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Lackett, the court's going to beg your indulgence and ask to take a short recess at this moment. The box has been shown, and we're going to take a recess.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Lackett, I'm going to have the jury come back in, and I'm going to invite you to continue your direct examination. Defense Exhibit A is with the witness.
Yes, Your Honor. After that brief interlude, Miss Brown, could you please tell us what I've just handed you?
This is a Princess Beads box.
Did Happy Land ever change the packaging of Princess Beads?
No, this is the only box we ever sold the Princess Beads in.
Your Honor, may I approach Miss Brown to retrieve?
Go ahead.
Showing opposing counsel what has been previously marked for identification purposes as Defense's Exhibit A. Your Honor, at this time, we'd like to move Defense's Exhibit A into evidence.
Ms. Centrella,
No objection, Your Honor.
defense A is in evidence. You may continue.
May I approach Miss Brown?
Go ahead.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Now, Miss Brown, using this box, could you please tell the jury about the warning labels that Happy Land used?
Yes, we used two different kinds of warning labels, age and consumption. The first age label we used was this 9+ symbol, which tells parents the toy is only for children over the age of 9. It is on the top and the bottom of the box. Additionally, there is a symbol here on this side of the box, 0 to 3 with a line through it, meaning not intended for children between the ages of 0 and 3.
You also mentioned the use of consumption warnings. Could you tell us about the consumption warnings on the box?
Here, next to the not intended for children between the ages of 0 and 3 label, it says, warning, choking hazard, not for consumption, may be toxic if swallowed.
Miss Brown, did you consider the possibility that a parent might ignore those warning labels?
As clear as the labels were, there is always that possibility. You see, as a toy designer, I can tell people how to use a toy. I can't make them follow the directions. At some point, parents have to take some responsibility to monitor their children.
Thank you, Miss Brown. No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Ms. Lackett, thank you.
You're welcome, Your Honor.
Ms. Centrella, you may inquire by way of cross-examination of this witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Brown.
Good morning.
I want to talk about those tests that Happy Land conducted.
Certainly.
Now, these tests were designed to see, to find a flavored chemical that would be most effective in making kids spit out the beads if they did put them in their mouth, right?
Yes, we ran testing to find the most effective deterrent.
And in these tests, you put 10 2-year-olds in a room for 30 minutes, right?
That is correct.
In each of these rooms, you had an assortment of different toys, including the princess beads.
Yes, we did have different toys in the room.
But out of all the toys in the room, the children went straight for your princess beads, didn't they, Miss Brown?
They did gravitate towards the beads, yes.
And in each of these tests, you put a different flavor on the beads?
That is correct, to determine what the proper deterrent was.
And in each of these tests, 5 out of the 10 children put a bead in their mouth, right, Miss Brown?
That is true. In the tests before the denatonium, we did find that 5 children did put the beads in their mouths, hence those deterrents were not effective.
Excuse me. Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Well, the answer did respond to your question, whether, and I'm going to let you pursue it from there, the answer is going to stand.
Yes, Your Honor. Is that a yes to my question?
That is yes.
So that's 50%, right, Miss Brown?
That is true, which is why those deterrents were not effective.
But even with the chemical denatonium, still 50% of the children put a bead in their mouth. Isn't that right, Miss Brown?
They did, and then 4 children did spit the beads out.
That's right. One child swallowed a bead, didn't they?
Yes, only 1 child in the room swallowed a bead.
But that's 20% of the children who put a bead in their mouth swallowed a bead. Isn't that true, Miss Brown?
1 out of 5, 20%, yes.
And denatonium is the chemical that Happy Land applied to the princess beads when they were released out into the market. Isn't that true?
Yes, it was a very effective deterrent based on our testing.
It was effective, and yet 20% of the children who put a bead in their mouth swallowed it. Isn't that true, Miss Brown?
Only one child put a single bead in their mouth and never went back for another bead, so we found it very effective.
Only one child. Now I want to talk about what else Happy Land put on their princess beads.
Certainly.
I want to direct your attention to May 16th of 2009. And now that was the day that Happy Land chose to go from the chemical 1,5-pentanediol to the chemical 1,4-butanediol. Isn't that true?
That is correct, yes.
And isn't it true that 1,4-butanediol is 8 times cheaper than 1,5-pentanediol?
It was less expensive and safer.
It was 8 times cheaper. Isn't that right, Miss Brown?
That is correct.
And 1,4-butanediol was the chemical that took Miss Lexington less than a day to approve. Isn't that true?
She did approve it in a day, yes.
She approved it in less than a day. Right, Miss Brown?
That is correct, yes.
And your team had been working on 1,5-pentanediol for almost 2 months, right?
That is true, and we found it to be not a good chemical to use.
Now I want to talk about what else Miss Lexington said on May 16th, 2009. Your Honor, may I set up a demonstrative?
Go ahead.
Now, Ms. Brown, this is the email you received from Miss Lexington on May 16th, 2009, right?
May I take a moment to look at it?
You may.
Yes, that is correct.
And you received this email on May 16th, 2009
Yes, that is true.
at 5 p.m.
Yes.
And in this email, Miss Lexington states, use the 1,4-butanediol.
She did approve the use of 1,4-butanediol.
And Miss Lexington also goes on to say, just do whatever it takes to bring this thing in on budget, doesn't she?
In the email, she did mention a time and monetary constraint. That is true.
Miss Brown, she said, do whatever it takes to bring this thing in on budget. Isn't that true?
Again, she did mention a monetary constraint. Yes?
Is that a yes to my question?
Yes, it is.
And Miss Lexington mentions, just do whatever it takes to bring this thing in on time. Isn't that true?
Yes, she did indicate a time constraint. True.
Now, I want to take a look at the forwarded portion of this email. I want you to take a look at this third bullet point, Miss Brown. Please read along silently as I read this out loud. To be safe, the 1,4-butanediol should not be used in any item that is intended for consumption by humans and should not be used in any product that might foreseeably be eaten. Did I read that correctly, Ms. Brown?
That is what the email says.
But Ms. Brown, you learned from your testing that statistically 1 out of 10 children were going to swallow your beads. Isn't that true, Ms. Brown?
We learned that when the beads were covered with denatonium, that only one single child in the room swallowed one bead and never went back for another.
So you learned that 1 out of 10 children were going to swallow a bead. Isn't that true, Ms. Brown?
1 out of 10 children did swallow a bead in the test. That is correct.
Thank you. No further questions.
Ms. Centrella, thank you. Ms. Lackett, do you have any further questions for this witness?
A brief redirect, Your Honor.
Brief or not, the time is in your control. And what do you want done with the demonstrative?
I would like to take the demonstrative down.
Counsel, please deconstruct.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Lackett, you may inquire.
Ms. Brown, why did you use 1,4-butanediol over 1,5-pentanediol?
Well, firstly, because the CEO of the company did approve the use of 1,4-butanediol. Additionally, We found 1,4-butanediol to be not only less expensive, but safer. It did not present the choking hazard 1,5-pentanediol presented.
And Ms. Brown, did you have any concerns about the safety of princess beads after your testing of denatonium?
No, our concerns were greatly mitigated after the fact we used denatonium on the beads.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Lackett, thank you.
At this time, may we publish Defense's Exhibit A to the jury?
You may.
Permission to approach Ms.
Go
Brown?
ahead. Bring it up. Thank you. Ms. Centrella. Anything? There being no further questions for the witness, Ms. Brown, you're excused with the thanks of the court.
Thank you.
Ms. Reibel, who is the next witness that the defense wants to call?
Your Honor, the defense calls Dr. Gardner.
Dr. Gardner, please take the witness stand. I remind you that you've been sworn to tell the truth. I direct you to do so. I ask that you kindly keep your voice up so that everybody can hear you. And Ms. Reibel, you may inquire.
Well, before I begin, Your Honor, may I set up some demonstratives?
Are they going to be for the initial questions that you ask?
Your Honor, I won't show them to the jury at this time just to expedite the process.
Okay, my question is, will they be, it's the same question I asked the plaintiff.
No, Your Honor.
Then we'll wait until we get to that part. Please begin your examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Dr. Gardner.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a doctor specializing in pharmacology. I study the effects of drugs on the body.
Where were you educated?
I got my MD from Harvard Medical School, graduating magna cum laude.
Could you please describe your experience in pharmacology?
I've had over 20 years experience working in pharmacology, and for the past 13 years, I've provided consultation on medical issues.
Do you have any experience with GHB?
I've treated dozens of patients for gamma hydroxybutylate poisoning while I was the director of pharmacology at St. Sebastian's Hospital. Additionally, I'm familiar with the latest research on GHB poisoning.
Your Honor, at this time we tender Dr. Gardner as an expert in pharmacology, specifically GHB and 1,4-butanediol.
Ms. Malley, as to the application.
No objection, Your Honor.
There being no objection, the tender is accepted and the witness is recognized as an expert specifically in the areas of 1,4-butanediol and GHB. You may continue your examination, Ms. Reibel.
How are you involved in today's case?
In this case, I was asked to review Joey Davis's autopsy report, the emergency room report, the record of outpatient visits, and the preeminent research on GHB in the field. I was also asked to review the affidavits of Joey Davis's toxicologist, Dr. Chase Touchemont, and Joey Davis's caregivers. Then, I was asked to form an opinion on Dr. Touchemont's theories.
After reviewing all of this information, do you agree with Dr. Touchemont's conclusion regarding the cause of Joey Davis's death?
No, I don't. I concluded that Dr. Touchemont's theory that the princess beads must have caused Joey Davis's death was flawed in 3 ways.
Okay, let's take those flaws one at a time. What's the first flaw?
Dr. Touchemont assumes that all of the 1,4-butanediol metabolized off the beads that she tested, but we know this can't be true.
How do we know that?
1,4-butanediol metabolizes into GHB in the liver. Dr. Touchemont's conclusion that the princess beads must have caused Joey Davis's death was based on the beads that she tested, but that's exactly the problem.
Why is that a problem?
Science. If 1,4-butanediol was on the beads recovered from Joey Davis's body, then it could not have all metabolized into GHB in the liver. But that's not the only problem. Joey Davis did not ingest enough 1,4-butanediol to cause death.
Your Honor, at this time, may I set up some demonstratives?
Go right ahead.
And may Dr. Gardner approach the demonstratives?
Go ahead.
What are we looking at here?
This first graph shows us the amount of 1,4-butanediol necessary to cause death in a 33-pound child, 300 milligrams per liter of blood. According to Dr. Touchemont, Joey Davis only ingested half the fatal dose.
Based on the records you reviewed, did Joey have GHB in his system?
Yes, and moving on to the
Is this significant?
Well, this red bar here shows us the amount of GHB necessary to cause death in any human being. 300 milligrams per liter of blood. Again, Joey Davis only ingested half the fatal dose.
Now, let's talk about the second flaw you have with Dr. Tushmont's theory. Can you explain that flaw to us?
I actually have a third graph to demonstrate.
Your Honor, may I set up
Set it up. Go right ahead.
Now, can you explain your second flaw with Dr. Tushmont's theory?
The timing of Joey Davis's death is inconsistent with the metabolic lethality as shown in this chart. The horizontal axis down here shows the timing of events that occurred on August 8, 2009, starting at 12 o'clock and ending at 2:02 p.m. The vertical axis shows us GHB levels in milligrams per liter of blood. It starts at 0 at the bottom and ends at 300, the fatal one.
So, what's the problem with the metabolic timing?
Well, Joey Davis didn't ingest GHB, but rather 1,4-butadiol, which is commonly found in plastics and other household items. 1,4-butadiol only metabolizes into GHB in the liver, and that's where the 12:35 time becomes significant.
Why is it significant?
Well, we know that Joey Davis ingested the beads sometime between 12 and 12:10. Because he vomited the beads at 12:35, we know that his body had metabolized sub-1,4-butadiol into GHB, and his body was trying to expel the GHB from his system. The research is clear that once the GHB-causing agent is removed from the body, the GHB level should peak no more than 45 minutes later.
Based on this research, what time should Joey Davis's GHB levels have peaked?
Well, this red line shows us what science says should happen. Specifically, that death from the original source of GHB would occur at 1:20 at the latest.
Dr. Gardner, what time did Joey Davis die?
He died almost 87 minutes after vomiting at 2:02 p.m. Thus, the timing of events is a huge flaw in Dr. Tushmont's theory, which is represented by this green line.
Can you please explain that line to us?
Dr. Tushmont attempts to connect the sequence of events so that there's a fatal peak at 2:02 p.m. However, Dr. Tushmont's theory fails to take into account the science and Joey Davis's symptoms.
Why do you say that?
The research is clear that Joey Davis should have died from the original source of GHB at 1:20 at the latest. There is no evidence to support that death from the original source of GHB would occur much later than it scientifically should have occurred.
Dr. Gardner, is there any evidence that Joey Davis's GHB level ever exceeded 148 milligrams of GHB per liter of blood?
That's the problem. Dr. Tushmont only tested Joey's GHB levels one time. We will never know if Joey Davis's GHB levels ever went above 148 milligrams per liter of blood.
Thank you, Dr. Gardner. You may sit back down. Now, you said there were 3 flaws with Dr. Tushmont's theory. What's the third?
Joey Davis's caregivers reported numerous breathing problems, but there was no evidence that these breathing conditions had ever been treated. In the autopsy report, it mentions bronchospasms, which occur when the lungs constrict, commonly in connection with asthma. In fact, Joey Davis exhibited symptoms consistent with asthma.
Doctor, in your professional opinion, can an untreated breathing condition kill someone?
Yes, of course. Breathing conditions, especially when left untreated, can absolutely be fatal.
Can a combination of a breathing condition and GHB poisoning kill someone?
Yes, but not in this case. A lack of oxygen would actually speed up the metabolic timing process.
Dr. Gardner, were you ever able to determine the cause of death?
No one can determine Joey Davis's cause of death. But the timing, the blood levels, those indicate that it should not have been the princess beads.
Let me get this straight. Are you telling us that on the same day that Joey Davis swallowed princess beads, he died from something entirely different than the beads?
What I am telling you is that it is impossible to know. That's the problem with this case. There are so many questions and so few answers.
Thank you, Dr. Gardner. I have no further questions at this time.
Ms. Rybel, thank you. Ms. Malley, what do you want done with the demonstratives?
I'd like to ask that the demonstratives
Let's deconstruct them, please.
Of course, Your Honor.
Ms. Malley, you may inquire by way of cross-examination of this witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Dr. Gardner.
Good morning.
Now, you believe Joey Davis could not have died from the princess beads because it doesn't fit a timeline?
That is one of the reasons that I find a flaw in Dr. Tushman's theory.
Now, you don't know how the food in Joey Davis's stomach may have affected the metabolism of 1,4-butanediol into GHB, do you?
No, but that's not important because he vomited.
And you don't know how the cold he had that day may have affected that metabolism.
Again, that's not important because he vomited.
Doctor, that wasn't my question. I asked you don't know how that may have affected it.
No, we do not know.
And isn't it true you don't know what his peak concentration even was?
Again, we do not know that because Dr. Tushman only tested it one time.
Now, isn't it true that GHB affects children more harshly than adults?
The dosage does, that's correct.
And it affects smaller people more severely than larger people?
Again, that's true.
And it affects people with respiratory conditions more severely than those without?
Again, that's correct, harsher and faster.
Now, you believe it was Joey Davis's respiratory illness alone that caused his death, correct?
That is one possibility in this case.
Now, you're aware that Joey Davis had several, if not hundreds, of respiratory attacks prior to August 8th, 2009, correct?
I am aware that they did have breathing condition problems.
And in any of those attacks, Joey Davis never seized,
In those previous attacks, no, he did not.
never vomited,
Again, in this milder attack, no, he did not.
never went into a coma.
Again, no.
And he would always grab his chest, wouldn't he?
That is what his caregivers reported.
No, on August 8th, 2009, Joey Davis did have a seizure, didn't he?
That is correct, which is consistent with a more severe asthma attack.
Doctor, that wasn't my question. I asked whether Joey Davis had a seizure on August 8th, 2009.
Yes, he did.
He vomited on August 8th, 2009.
Again, he did.
He went into a coma.
Again, which is consistent with a severe asthma attack.
But instead of grabbing his chest as he had on all of those other respiratory attacks, he touched his stomach when asked what was wrong, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
And this was the same day that Joey Davis swallowed dozens of princess beads.
That is correct.
Those princess beads are coated with 1,4-butanediol,
That is true, 50 milligrams.
and that 1,4-butanediol metabolizes into GHB.
1,4-butanediol is a precursor for GHB.
And GHB has been known to cause seizures,
That is correct.
vomiting,
Again, that is true. That's body's healthy response.
coma,
That is true.
respiratory arrest.
That is correct.
And Joey Davis suffered from all of those symptoms on August 8th, 2009.
He did suffer those symptoms.
So isn't it true the facts are consistent with princess beads causing Joey Davis's death?
The symptoms are consistent.
The facts are consistent.
That is one possibility that could have happened in this case, yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Ms. Malley, thank you.
Redirect, Your Honor.
Just give me a second, please, Ms. Rybel.
Of course.
Counsel's not seated yet, and I'm not ready. Ms. Rybel, you may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Gardner, opposing counsel just questioned you about symptoms between asthma attacks and GHB poisoning. Now, would gasping for air be consistent with an asthma attack?
That would be consistent with a more mild form of asthma attacks. In severe asthma attacks, you would not see wheezing or gasping for air.
Would vomiting be consistent with asthma attacks?
No, however, that would be the body's healthy and natural response to ingesting a foreign object such as the beads.
Would seizing and falling into a coma be consistent with asthma attacks?
Yes, these are consistent with a more severe form of asthma attacks. In the autopsy report, I mentioned bronchospasms, meaning that he had a lack of oxygen, and both of these two symptoms are due to a lack of oxygen in the brain.
Thank you, Dr. Gardner. No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Malley,
Nothing further, Your
the
Honor.
witness is excused with the thanks of the court. Ms. Malillo.
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Brett Miller.
Brett Miller. Ms. Miller, please take the witness stand. I'll remind you that you've been sworn to tell the truth, and I direct you to do so. Please keep your voice up good and loud so that everybody can hear you. Ms. Malillo, you may inquire.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please introduce yourself to the jury.
Hello, my name is Brett Miller.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Miss Miller?
Well, I'm originally from Rio Grande do Sul, Brazil, but I came to America to complete my education. I'm currently studying child psychology, and I'm also doing a lot of babysitting around the neighborhood.
Do you know Mrs. Davis?
Yes, of course.
How did you know Mrs. Davis?
I used to babysit her children, Hillary, who was 9, and Joey, who was 2. They were my 2 favorites.
When did you babysit for the Davis family?
I started babysitting for the Davises in 2008, usually a few times a week or whenever their mother needed me. I babysat for the Davises for about a year before Joey passed away.
Miss Miller, I'd like to ask you about Joey's health. In the year that you watched Joey, did you notice if he had any health problems?
Well, I loved watching over Joey, but he was sick a lot, usually nothing more than a cold. But he also had these breathing problems. His condition really scared me.
Why did it scare you?
Every time Joey would run around, he would cough and wheeze and grab at his little chest like he just couldn't catch his breath. Especially after he got those little light-up shoes. He wanted to be like Spider-Man.
Miss Miller, did you ever do anything about these breathing problems?
Well, I told Mrs. Davis that she should take Joey to a doctor because the symptoms were getting so serious.
How did Mrs. Davis respond?
Well, she agreed, but when she came back, she seemed very frustrated and said that the doctor had only seen Joey for 5 minutes.
To your knowledge, did Mrs. Davis ever take Joey back to the doctor?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
When did Mrs. Davis take Joey to the doctor?
That was in 2008, October, I think.
Did you notice if Joey's breathing problems got any better after October?
Joey's problems did not improve.
Miss Miller, I'd now like to ask you about a product called Princess Beads. Are you familiar with this product?
I was there when Mrs. Davis gave them to Hillary for her birthday. Hillary loved those beads and played with them constantly. They were on the living room table every time I was there after that.
You told us that Mrs. Davis bought these for Hillary. Did you ever see Joey try to play with the princess beads?
I did, but Mrs. Davis and I did our best to keep him away from them.
During these times when you saw Joey try to play with the beads, did you ever see him put any in his mouth?
The few times that I did see him put them in his mouth, he spat them out immediately and scrunched up his face like he'd eaten a lemon. I don't think he liked the taste of them very much.
Now, Miss Miller, I want to ask you about a specific day, August 8th, 2009. Do you remember that day?
Yes, I was babysitting for the Davises.
You told us that Joey would experience breathing problems when he was running around. Was Joey running around at all that day?
More than ever. I'd never seen Joey so energetic in my life. He was just running back and forth, and I couldn't keep him still.
Did you ever leave Joey alone that day?
Well, I sat him down on the couch so I could calm him down. And then I went into the kitchen to make him macaroni. It was his favorite.
When you were in the kitchen, could you see Joey?
No, I couldn't see Joey.
Could you tell if Joey stayed in the living room?
No, I couldn't.
What happened when you returned from the kitchen?
I saw Joey. He was lying on the floor and he wasn't moving. I went straight to the hospital.
What happened when you went to the hospital?
I get there and everyone is asking me questions and I don't know what to do, and I called and I called and I called Mrs. Davis, but she wasn't picking up the phone. And then they took Joey and Hillary was crying and I didn't know what to do at that point.
Miss Miller, did Mrs. Davis ever come to the hospital that day?
Yes, she did.
What happened when Mrs. Davis got to the hospital?
She said that if I would have been paying more attention, none of this would have happened. But I knew how bad Joey's problems could get when he ran around like that, so I had to calm him down. And Andy hated it while he was near the stove, so I couldn't bring him to the kitchen.
Miss Miller, I'd now like to ask you about the conditions in the Davis household. Did Joey ever play with any other beads beside the princess toys?
Joey had these little green army men and building blocks. He always put them in his mouth. I thought he might have been teething.
Now, we talked about the princess beads. Did you ever see the package that the princess beads came in?
I did, yes.
Did you ever read the warning labels?
No, Mrs. Davis said that they were junk and that I didn't need to read them.
Thank you, Miss Miller. No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Ms. Melillo, thank you. Ms. Weiss, you may
Yes.
inquire by way of cross-examination of this witness.
Good morning, Ms. Miller.
Good morning.
You babysat for the Davis family for about a year, true?
I did, yes.
And over this period of time, you witnessed Joey had some problems breathing.
Every time he would run around,
When he ran around, he would wheeze a little,
he would wheeze, yes.
he would cough,
He would cough and grab at his chest.
but this was only in response to when Joey ran around. Yes, Ms. Miller?
Yes,
And all that Joey needed to regain his breath was a couple minutes of resting. Isn't that true?
I usually had to calm Joey down after these breathing problems. That's true.
Now, let's look at the attack that occurred on August 8th, 2009. You were babysitting for the Davis family that day,
Yes, I was.
and you left Joey alone in the living room for about 10 minutes.
I did.
And when you came back in the room, Joey Davis was lying motionless on the floor.
He was.
And that was a response different than any other attack you had seen.
I'd never seen him like that in my life.
And Joey's eyes were glazed over.
They were.
And that was a response different from any other attack you had seen.
Yes,
And there were princess beads scattered all around Joey Davis's body.
there were princess beads in the living room. That's true.
There were beads just inches from Joey's mouth.
That's true. There was one bead just inches from Joey's mouth.
And when you asked Joey Davis what was wrong, he didn't grab his chest, did he?
He said his last words to me. He said he didn't feel good.
Ms. Miller, that wasn't my question. Did Joey Davis grab his chest when you asked him what was wrong?
No, not at that point, no.
No. Joey Davis grabbed his stomach.
Yes, he did.
And this scared you, Miss Miller.
It did scare me.
You picked Joey up and you rushed him to the hospital, yes?
I did everything I could to try to save Joey.
But you'd never had to take Joey Davis to the hospital before when you saw him having a breathing attack.
I didn't, Mrs. Davis did.
But while you were babysitting, you never before had to take Joey Davis to the hospital. Is that true, Miss Miller?
Me personally, no.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Very well, Ms. Weiss. Ms. Malillo.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Ms. Miller, you are excused with the thanks of the court. Does the defense rest?
Yes, Your Honor.
The defense having rested, the court's going to take a 5-minute recess. If the plaintiffs intend to use demonstratives during their closing, please use the recess time to set them up. Court is in recess.
Yeah.
State of Midlands Court is again in session. Case on trial. Davis v. Happyland Toy Company in the Circuit Court, State of Midlands, Breckinridge County, is again on trial. Prior to the recess, the defense had rested their case. The court took a recess to enable the parties to prepare for closing argument. And at this time, is the plaintiff ready to proceed with their closing argument?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Malley, the court will hear from you by way of closing argument on behalf of Joey Davis by and through his guardian and parent, Andy Davis.
Your Honor, may I ask that any time remaining up to 5 minutes?
Your rebuttal is reserved, and you may begin your closing argument at any time you wish.
May it please the court, counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Today you heard about a little boy, 2-year-old boy, who will never grow up. About a little girl who lost her brother. About a mother who lost her son. All because Happyland Toy Company chose to rush, chose to cut corners, chose to ignore warnings, and chose what was fast, easy, and cheap over what was safe. They spent a day, and it cost a life. Now, today we had to show by the preponderance of the evidence that Happyland Toy Company met each and every element of negligence. Now, that doesn't mean by every piece of the evidence. It means 50% plus 1. More likely than not. And today, the evidence has shown that Happyland Toy Company owed a duty of care to Joey Davis, that they breached that duty by failing to exercise due care, that this breach was the direct and proximate cause of injury to my client, and that my client suffered damages. So let's begin with that duty. Now, there is no dispute that Happyland Toy Company owed a duty of care to Joey Davis. This was a company that was supposed to manufacture safe toys for children. But they breached that duty. Now, to understand that breach of duty, we have to understand what was going on at Happyland Toy Company in 2009. After suffering their first ever annual loss, the board threatened to fire their CEO, Blake Lexington. Ms. Lexington knew, to save her job, that she had to choose a product that would be very successful, so she chose princess beads. But there was a problem. The chemical she wanted to use, that was too expensive. Now, with the deadline looming over her head and her job on the line, Ms. Lexington knew this meant major trouble. That's why, when the much cheaper 1,4-butanediol was proposed as the chemical that would save princess beads, well, Ms. Lexington took it and ran. There were no tests, no research, no deliberation. Now today, the defense tried to point the finger at Tristan Frost, tried to paint her as a liar. It was incredible. But you heard Tristan Frost on the stand today tell you that it wasn't her testimony that's sensational.
but these emails. Because you see, Blake Lexington knew there was a risk to using 1,4-butanediol. She knew it could be dangerous. This is the email from Aaron Swift telling her that it could. But instead of asking for more research, instead of taking the time to look into it further, Miss Lexington, in under 60 seconds, read this email, deleted this bullet point, and sent it off to Quinn Brown, telling her, use the 1,4-butanediol. Just do whatever it takes to bring this thing on time and on budget. Now, why would Miss Lexington hide this warning? Because she couldn't afford to slow down this project, not even for one day. So in less than 9 hours, this chemical went from proposal to approval. But Aaron Swift's warning became tragic reality on August 8th, 2009. Because that's when Joey Davis died from a GHB overdose caused by none other than the 1,4-butanediol on princess beads. Today you heard from Dr. Chase Touchemont that Joey Davis exhibited all of the symptoms consistent with a GHB poisoning, that Joey Davis had 15 times the normal amount of GHB in his system, and that this, combined with his respiratory issues, caused him to go into fatal respiratory arrest. Now, the defense brought in their own expert, Dr. Gardner, to try to tell you that it's not consistent. It doesn't fit a timeline. It wasn't enough GHB. But you heard today that the GHB combined with Joey Davis's respiratory condition made it so that a lower dosage could cause him to go into fatal respiratory arrest. You heard that all of Joey Davis's previous attacks, he never vomited, never seized, never went into a coma. But on August 8th, it was different. He did seize. He did vomit. He did go into a coma. And instead of touching his chest when asked what was wrong, he touched his stomach. You heard from Brett Miller today that she had never seen this before in her life. So what was different? And it was the princess beads. The dozens of princess beads coated with 1,4-butanediol that Joey ingested. Even Dr. Gardner herself had to admit that the facts are consistent with princess beads causing Joey Davis's death. So this brings us to damages. Well, there's no dispute my client suffered damages. This was a mother, a family just trying to make ends meet, who had no clue the gift she'd gotten for her daughter contained poison. You heard her on the stand today. She struggled to find the words to describe what it was like in that hospital as she begged her son to wake up. But Joey Davis didn't wake up. When Blake Lexington buried the data, Andy Davis had to bury her son. Happy Land got desperate. They put cost above safety, and it was Joey Davis who paid the price. So today we ask that you speak to them in the only language they seem to understand. And we ask that you find Happy Land Toy Company liable. Thank you.
Ms. Malley, thank you. I want the timekeepers to take a moment, consult with one another, and please let me know how much time of the original 9 minutes still remains.
Your Honor, there's 1 minute and 54 seconds remaining for rebuttal.
Thank you. 154, Ms. Malley.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome. Ms. Melillo, the court will hear from you when you are ready by way of closing argument on behalf of the defendant, Happy Land Toy Company.
Yes, Your Honor. May I have permission to set up demonstratives?
Before you begin, and certainly before your time starts, yes, go right ahead.
May it please the court? Members of the jury. What happened to Joey Davis is a tragedy. Most of us can't even imagine what Mrs. Davis is going through. But the value of Joey Davis's life is not on trial today. We're here to see if someone is to blame. And it was the plaintiff's job not to point the finger, but to prove that Happyland Toy Company was responsible for the death of Joey Davis. Ladies and gentlemen, today we heard the evidence. Happyland made a safe toy for its intended users. No one knows what caused Joey Davis's death. The plaintiff's case seems to have everything. A story that truly wrenches the heart. Complicated medical testimony, a big corporate defendant to blame. The plaintiff's case seems to have everything. Everything except evidence. Now, that's a big thing to be missing in this case because today the plaintiff had the burden of proof. They had to prove to you that Happyland was negligent. That means they had to prove that Princess Beads were unreasonably dangerous and had the foreseeable risk of death. They had to prove to you that Princess Beads caused Joey Davis's death. Ladies and gentlemen, they haven't and they can't do that because the evidence doesn't support their claims. So let's look at what the evidence does support. What we did learn today. First, that Princess Beads were designed in a safe manner. And second, that the medical testimony today was inconclusive. So let's look at the first issue, the production of Princess Beads. Now, the plaintiff relies heavily upon the testimony of Tristan Frost, a witness who took the stand today and told you that her boss was desperate for her to get a story. Members of the jury, Tristan Frost was desperate. She told you today that the more sensational her testimony is today, the more books she will sell, the more money she will make. Now, they also try to tell you that Princess Beads were unreasonably dangerous. But Quinn Brown took the stand today and she told you about the extensive testing done and the bitter coating put on the beads. Now, Princess Beads were designed for preteen girls. Girls this age don't normally put toys in their mouths, but Happyland took precautions to make sure that younger children would not be harmed and would not swallow the beads. But even after that, they decided to take additional steps to ensure that Princess Beads were safe. Happyland put precautions and safety warnings all over the Princess Beads box. These warnings tell parents that the toy is intended for children 9 and over, that children between the ages of 0 and 3 should not play with the toy, and that the toy may be toxic if swallowed. By these warnings, parents are put on guard that Princess Beads, like earrings or nail polish, and other products meant for preteen girls, can be dangerous in the wrong hands. Members of the jury, the plaintiff has failed to prove that Princess Beads were unreasonably dangerous. So, let's take a look at the second issue today. 2 medical doctors testified. Neither could accurately pinpoint what caused Joey Davis's death. Dr. Gardner told you that the blood concentration, the statistical research, the timing don't support a cause of GHB poisoning. Now, the plaintiff has proposed a theory that Joey Davis died from a combination of asthma and GHB. But Dr. Gardner told us today that if Joey Davis had died from a combination of asthma and GHB, he would have died even earlier than he actually did, much earlier than even GHB poisoning should cause. Members of the jury, we also heard about alternative theories that are just as likely as princess beads. Dr. Gardner explained that asthma alone could have caused Joey Davis's death. We heard from Mrs. Davis and Miss Miller that Joey Davis had breathing problems in which he would gasp and wheeze and clutch at his chest. Members of the jury, these are symptoms of mild asthma. And Dr. Gardner told us that if Joey Davis had a severe asthma attack on the day he died, he would have had the same symptoms that he did. We also heard about the shortcomings in Dr. Touchemont's theory today. Dr. Touchemont admitted that the amount of GHB in Joey Davis's bloodstream was not enough to cause death according to the preeminent research in the field. But we also heard about shortcomings in Dr. Touchemont's testing. There were various non-food items found in Joey Davis's vomit, but Dr. Touchemont chose to test only the princess beads. Members of the jury, we learned that many household products contain GHB. And unfortunately, due to the shortcomings in Dr. Touchemont's testing, we will never learn what else Joey Davis might have swallowed, because Dr. Touchemont didn't test any other product in the Davis household, anything from Joey Davis's stomach contents except the princess beads. These shortcomings prevent us from knowing what actually caused Joey Davis's death. The plaintiff has failed to prove, by a preponderance of the evidence, that princess beads were responsible. Now, the plaintiff's case is sympathetic and it seems to have everything, but the plaintiff is missing evidence to support their claims. Without this evidence, without this definitive proof, the plaintiff cannot meet their burden. Members of the jury, because of this, there is only one reasonable conclusion. Happy Land is not responsible for the death of Joey Davis. Find Happy Land not liable. Thank you.
Ms. Melillo, thank you. Ms. Malley, there's a minute 54 remaining. Do you wish to use any or all of that time for rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may begin at your leisure.
Ladies and gentlemen, today the defense told you that the plaintiff seems to have everything but the evidence. But that's simply not true. They told you that Tristan Frost was desperate and was trying to sensationalize her testimony. But she didn't have to, because the evidence was written by the Happy Land Toy Company's own employees. You can see for yourself that they deleted that bullet point warning of the risks of 1,4-butanediol. They were rushing. Not only that, the testing with denatonium showed that 10% of children who put a bead with denatonium in their mouth would swallow a bead. But they put that toy on the market anyway. They rushed, they cut corners, they hid warnings. They spent a day, and it cost a life. We ask that you find Happy Land Toy Company liable. Thank you.
Ms. Malley, thank you. With both sides having completed their cases and their closing arguments, the court's going to excuse the jury to enable them to deliberate and congratulate the witnesses and attorneys.
So, wow, what an amazing, incredible round. we were just talking about it back there, but I would not want to be a team competing in the state of California this year. That is for sure. I mean, thank goodness that the team I help out with is in New York, because we wouldn't stand a chance. But we do have the results, and we are going to announce the winner. And since I have no voice and I love championship announcements, I'm going to turn over the microphone to the man himself, Mr. Carlos Bryant, the MC, the master of ceremonies.
All righty, I'll tell you, I actually much prefer being in this setting than that setting because it's so hard, incredible. With a score of 4-3, a point differential of just 2. Your 2012 world champions for the second time, Reina High School.
Want to go on stage? Just go on stage and take a photo.
So how do you guys feel after the tournament?
We had a really great time. It was really fun.
Yeah.
It was an amazing experience.
Okay. And do you have any messages for the other team?
Congratulations. This was an amazing last round. We had such a great time. It was incredible. And it was awesome that it was all California.
Anything about Empire Mock Trial or?
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Most experiences of my entire life. We met so many incredible people and learned so much. I'm so happy that we could have
So much fun. Yeah.
So how do you guys feel?
freaking awesome. That's how we feel.
Awesome.
So amazing. This is like the best feeling in the world. It's incredible. It's unreal.
Is it?
It's amazing.
Is this your?
We felt the same last year because now it's just
Is this your second? So is your second year winning?
yeah. Defending.
Do you guys have anything to say to the other team?
They were amazing. They were truly awesome.
Last year we went up against Pueblos at state, and again, they're just one of the best teams that we've ever hit. And they're always just completely on their game. They're always fun to compete against too.
And do you guys have anything to say about Empire Mock Trial?
It's the best tournament. By far the best mock trial.
Best tournament
ever. We came here to win. Not to get third, not to get second, but to get first. Did it again.
Time.